welcome back to While You Were Cleaning. Today I have some Dollar Tree Christmas garland DIYs to share with you. You can add these garlands to a shelf, to a mantle. You can hang them on the wall, whatever you want to use them for. These are all very easy garlands to put together using some very affordable products from the Dollar Tree. So I hope that you enjoy today's video and that it's helpful for you. If you do enjoy it, please hit that like button, please comment and subscribe, and we'll go ahead and get started. When I saw that Dollar Tree had two different designs for these wooden snowflakes this year, I knew I would want to do a DIY with these. So I'm going to be using these along with some white yarn that I also found at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using 3 different strings. On the first string, I am going to add 3 of these snowflakes, and I'm just going to alternate them throughout this. So on that first string is going to be 3, and when I loop these snowflakes onto here, what I did was I put the yarn through that hole in the center, and then I bring it back up and around to the front and put it through the hole in the center again. I just looped these snowflakes instead of tying them so that I can adjust them on the string after they're hanging without having to untie them to adjust them. And right now I'm just getting them in place on the string. I'm going to be adding these snowflakes to this branch that I also used for my fall leaf wall hanging. And what I have here is on the first top string, I have 3 snowflakes. On the next one down, I have 5, and then on the bottom one, I have 7. And when I tied these on at the end, I just staggered those strings a little bit, and then I knotted them all together, and then I tied them around the branch to hold them in place. But you can see here how all 3 of my strands are different lengths and they're staggered, and so when the snowflakes are hanging here, they hang in 3 different rows. So now this is where the looping of these snowflakes comes in handy instead of tying them in place, because I can just loosen them a little bit and adjust the string in the snowflake so that I can line up my snowflakes however I want them, and I don't have to untie anything. And looping the snowflakes still holds them in place. They're not going to slide away from where you want them on this wall hanging. And here's how that wall hanging turned out. I did just leave these snowflakes in the natural wood color, but you could also spray paint them white, or even a silver shiny color would look great as well. For my next garland, I'll be using these large bells that come in a 6-pack. They also have this other pack of bells in the store that come in a 9-pack, and they are about the same size, but I do like the ones in the 6-pack, just the look of them a little bit better. And I'm going to be painting these, so I stuck them on a dowel rod through the little loops in the side of the bells, and that way I can spray paint them all at once. And I will be using this Rust-Oleum Ultra Matte Spray Paint in black. You could use any color you want. You could also leave them in the gold color, but the reason here that I put them on the dowel rod was so that I can just spin them around and get every side of the bells at once so that I don't have to wait for one side to dry. And here's how they look. I did do 3 packages of these, and I'll be using this black and white twine to string them together. I am going to loop through the top of these bells the same way that I did those snowflakes. I just put the string through the bell, brought it up, back around, and looped it through the bell a second time. This way I can adjust them after they're hanging, and I don't have to worry about them being tied. This is another very simple garland to put together, and I really love this one. This will for sure be hanging somewhere in my home this year, and I love the matte black spray paint on these bells as well. It's a really nice color. For my next garland, I'll be using some of the 1 1/4 inch large round circles from this package of assorted wood shapes that I found at Dollar Tree. And then I'll also be using some of this white cotton yarn And then to add some letters to my round circles, I'll be using this stencil. I really like the size on this one. It fills the letters really well. You could also use some rub-on transfer letters if you wanted to. And then to fill in my stencil, I'll just be using this glass paint pen in black. You could use any marker that they might have there at Dollar Tree. I do like the way that this one fills in the stencil. The package of wood shapes comes with 15 of the larger round circles, and I needed 14 of them to spell out Merry Christmas. You could do any wording that you want. I just wanted to do Merry Christmas. I thought it was a nice long phrase to use for a garland. And then I just stenciled out all of the letters that I needed. And what I did was, where it has that little break in the stencil, I did go back over that with my marker to fill that in so that it didn't really look like a stencil. I wanted these kind of to look like they were stamped, and I think the way that this black marker works, that works out pretty well. Next, I added a little bit of hot glue to the top of the back of these round circles and then glued them onto my yarn. Normally, I would turn these all over and add the hot glue and then put the yarn across, but it would just be hard for me to explain that to you in the video, so I'm showing it to you this way. And yes, the hot glue kind of stuck to my table a little bit and was hard to get off. You could also drill small holes to the top of these and string them on the yarn that way, but they lay a little bit flatter if you glue them down. Next, I'll be using some black and white buffalo check or gingham ribbon. They have these two different ones at Dollar Tree. I'm going to use the one with these smaller checkers on it, and I'm just going to tie a very simple bow with this. I did start out with a knot because I wanted this bow to lay nice and flat, but as you can see, it's just a very simple bow. I tied 3 of these that were all around the same size. Can't really get them exact. And then I just glued one in the center between the Merry and Christmas words, and then I glued one at each end of my garland. And here's how that garland turned out. I really do love it. These circles are the perfect size for adding words to a garland, not too big, not too small. And I do like the way that stenciling the letters makes them look like they're stamped onto the wood shapes. This next garland is super easy, guys. I used 2 packages of these ornament wood shapes. You could use any wood shapes that you can find. And then I'm also using a nice long strand of these fairy lights. These are not Dollar Tree lights. You would have to use 2 strands of Dollar Tree lights if you wanted them to be this long, but it really just depends on where you're hanging these. And I just strung all 2 packages of these ornaments onto the fairy light strand, and then I hung up my strand and I stretched it across the front of the fireplace, and then I just spaced out all of these wood shapes and twisted the wires so they held in place. Next is another very simple garland. I'll be using 3 packages of these trees, and you may need to adjust that depending on how long you need your garland to be. And then I'll also be using this cotton twine that you can find in the hardware section of Dollar Tree. Now, these are the trees that are a little bit fluffier. They do have 2 different types of trees there in the store. And so these ones hold this string in them by just pushing it in between the branches. They hold in place. You don't have to tie them or anything. If you use the other trees, you might have to tie them in place. But I just spaced out these trees. I alternated them between the taller and the shorter trees, and then just spaced them out across this twine. And then it's just another very simple garland that you can use to decorate this Christmas. This last garland is my favorite, and it also takes a little bit more time to put together. You're going to need some green yarn or whatever color that you choose, and then I'm going to be making some mini tassels. So this here, I'm using a business card, You can use anything that's a business card size or a credit card size, and you're just going to wrap your yarn around it several times. I didn't really count. And then you'll want to tie it at the top of the tassel and then cut another small piece of yarn and tie down about a 1/2 inch from the top of that tassel so that it has this little head part to the tassel. And then on the end of your tassel, just trim it off, make sure it's straight there at the bottom. And then you'll want to do this a bunch more times depending on how long you want your garland to be. But we are going to make mini trees with these mini tassels. So you need 3 of these tassels for each tree that you make. And you'll just follow the same steps and trim them off at the bottom, tie them down. I did put together my tassels. One of them has a little string still sticking out the top of it, and then the other 2 I went ahead and tied that down. These strings are here so that you can tie them onto your garland. It doesn't necessarily matter whether you leave your other 2 tassels with those strings still sticking up or not. But next we're going to glue these all together. So I just spread apart the yarn at the bottom of my tassels and glued them together so that they make this cute little tree shape. And here you can see I put together 8 of these mini trees for my garland. Each of these have 3 tassels, so it was a lot of mini tassel making. And then I'm also going to be using some of these wooden beads that you can find in the hair section at Dollar Tree, and then some twine. So I just have, I think, 9 beads here, and I'm just going to thread all of those onto my twine. And then I went ahead and spaced them out. And instead of tying these in place, I'm just going to use some hot glue. Otherwise, I'd have to tie a pretty big knot at each side of these beads to hold them in place. So I just put a little bit of hot glue down the center of the bead. Just make sure you don't put too much hot glue and it goes all the way through and burnt your finger, because I did do that once. But I just spaced them out about 10 inches between each bead, and then I went through and tied all of my tassels in the center between the 2 beads. And here's that finished garland. Like I said before, this one is my favorite. I really love how high-end and just how pretty it looks, even though it's made with $1 products. And you can make this garland so long for a very affordable price. I hope you all have enjoyed today's Dollar Tree Christmas garland DIY video. Let me know down in the comments which of these garlands is your favorite, and if you're going to recreate one of them, make sure that you tag me over on Instagram if you share any pictures. I'd love to see your Christmas garlands. Thanks for watching today. Bye!